Quick, what does a witch look like? Don't think too hard and don't look for the trick. As soon as I asked the question, a picture popped into your mind. Be honest, what did she look like? Oh, yes, she was a she, wasn't she? There is indeed a linguistic weight on this word, and with Harry Potter and our current collective consciousness, you might have changed genders quickly had I said wizard, or for your more old-school fantasy consumers, warlock. But a she was, if we are being honest, regardless of how uncomfortable we may be beginning to feel. So, did she wear black? Did she have a broom, a black cat, wart on the nose? Was she at the cauldron chanting, bubble, bubble, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, or flicking her wrist just so, incanting, Wingardia Leviosa? Our variations are going to come from our generation and whether our dominant image of witch came from our religion of birth, Shakespeare, The Wizard of Oz, or Harry Potter. But interestingly enough, few of you who have longed to sit beneath the sorting hat will have first visualized Hermione Granger as your witch. Remember, we are being honest with ourselves here and admitting to our first image. Can a witch be a hero? Did you first see Glenda or Elphaba? Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, Bruchim Abiyim. I'm Rabbi Paul, your virtual rabbi, and let's stir up a little Torah, which by asking questions like this, you can see what I mean by stirring up a little Torah. Now, some of you have done the work to rewire the archetypes that provide your instant images. For a small minority, the question, what does a witch look like, focused on objects, a thame, a scrying bowl, incense, a wand and chalice. Those that thought of objects probably did so because in your world, witches look just like everyone else. And so the differentiation would come from the tools of the trade. But in this case, you who have already rewritten the metaphor have been able to do so most likely because you have been a practitioner of Wicca or some related neo-pagan circle. But we have a problem. Everything that we have visualized comes to us at the very earliest from medieval imagery. We can argue with neo-paganism as to how far back the rituals go, but like it or not, the word neo gives us a clue. For the vast majority of us thinking of black hats and long noses with warts, we have had 800 years at best with this image. An image tied in with the murder of conservatively between 40 and 60,000 women in Christian Europe between 1480 and 1750. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. If our image, instantly and authoritatively coming from our collective unconscious, dates back less than a millennium, then what should we make of this verse from the Bible and the blood that has been shed at its apparent imperative? Let's start with the verse. Exodus 22:18 appears in the middle of Parashat Mishaptim. This week's portion, Mishpatim, which translates as law, is indeed just that, more than 50. 53 to be exact, separate laws relating to rituals, civil and criminal law, and civic organization. Even better, some of these come directly or via common local tradition from older, non-Jewish texts, such as Hammurabi's Code. Like it or not, it's there, it's real, some of it word for word, dated circa the 18th century BCE. And stuck right in the middle of all of this is our one line, so infused with the ability to destroy, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Which has all too often been understood as permission to take that very literally when it comes to the lives of real human beings. Now, I have been a little bit naughty in my use of King James translation. The King James Version, an early 17th century project of the Church of England and the House of Stuart, has gifted us with some of the most poetic expressions of the Bible for the sake of music and literature in the English language. But as an accurate expression of the original Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, it lacks. And I'm being really, really nice. And if we are being honest, all translations lack because there really is no such thing as a translation. There is only interpretation. You see, the verse in the original Hebrew is Mechshefa lo tchaye. Lo means no. Tchaye is the third person singular form of to live in the sense of existing in the future tense. And Mechshefa, well, that's a mechshefa. This mechshefa cannot be a witch because we have already proven to ourselves that we cannot get past our medieval vision of a hag. Witch is the best we could do as we tried to translate a concept that existed in a wholly different time and place than the one that brought about our prejudice. Even if we accept, which I do not, that the Hebrew texts are commanding us to kill someone, it cannot be that which we visualize because she did not exist. So, we get to kill a makshefah? No, not really. The King James Version not only locked Anglo culture into thinking a makshefah wears a black hat, but it also locked us into a mentality of thou shalt not. And all the baggage that exists in the collective consciousness about separating the nature of God presented to the Hebrew people in the quote-unquote Old Testament versus a radically different nature seemingly presented in the Christian scriptures. If you're coming at this from outside of Judaism, don't tell me you haven't been there. For example, once while delivering a lecture at a Unitarian Universalist church about the problematic anti-Semitic undertones of Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, I guess a video for another day, I had a community leader approach me at the end of the weekend and offer what I believe he felt was a compliment. "You seem to have such an evolved sense of religion and spirituality. How can you then belong to a religion that offers such a backward and wrathful view of God?" was what he said to me, standing there in my yarmulke, not even having started rabbinical school yet, somehow attempting to represent both my religion and good academics. I was flummoxed. I didn't at the time have the tools to even begin to answer what represents a crux of understanding thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. But I wish I could have said then what I have learned to say since. The Hebrew Bible is filled with narrative, poetry, mythology, and a basis for a specific civil society. It's about a relationship between a people and their evolving religion, and within it are descriptions of every emotion that can emerge in a relationship, from the most intense anger to the most tender love. Yes, there are passages in the Torah such as, "The Eternal saw and was vexed and spurned his sons and daughters and said, I will hide my countenance from them and see how they fare in the end, for they are a treacherous breed, children with no loyalty in them. They incensed me with no gods, vexed me with their futilities. I'll incense them with the no folk, vex them with a nation of fools. For a fire has flared in my wrath and burned to the bottom of Sheol, has consumed the earth and its increase, eaten down to the base of the hills. I will sweep misfortunes on them, use up my arrows on them." It sounds bad, I know, but for every one of these moments of apparent wrath, there is the Eternal passed before Moses and proclaimed, the Eternal, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1000th generation, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin. So, the first question that needs to be answered is, with both ideas existing within Jewish tradition, why is your focus on the wrath? The second that must be addressed is, have I, the person who is asking the rabbi this question, ever asked a Jew if they see themselves as being subject to a God of wrath, or is that simply my understanding that I have projected onto an entire religion? Perhaps we can add a more provocative third. If I'm not a Jew, is my assumption regarding something in Judaism more authoritative than that of a knowledgeable someone in the Jewish community? All of us have developed a relationship with our sacred texts. The nature of this relationship has been influenced by good and bad teachers, the religion of our parents, the uniqueness of our neurology, and prejudices, filters, and contexts that are sometimes conscious, but often so deep that we have no awareness of their existence. A few minutes ago, we all visualized something from personal experience that had nothing to do with the text, Mechshefa lo techaye. But there's an entire world here that is so much more interesting and so much more accurately an expression of humanity in all its politics and aspirations. Let's delve back into that time. The Machshefah that the Torah speaks of was probably much closer to what we would consider the village wise woman. Today, we might seek these people on YouTube for their herbal remedies or life hacks to help us get rid of the annoying rash that my doctor is trying to prescribe steroids to deal with, or to tackle the wasps in my backyard that I do not want to spray poison everywhere to get rid of. Back in the day, they would have been known by the bundles of herbs in the window of their house or shop, and in our village, we would have gone to them for a tea, tincture, poultice, and yes, perhaps even a blessing. And yes, perhaps even a curse. But the multitudes of people across centuries and generations that composed, wrote, and redacted the snippets that became the scrolls that became holy books were simultaneously inspired and human. We don't often think of this, as it makes us slightly uncomfortable to consider that humans have personal or group agendas, which forces the consideration that the holy books of Jewish tradition and all traditions had a political agenda in addition to, or even as a part of their moments of divine inspiration. Not unlike the modern Constitution, this included an ordered society with a definition of allowed leadership roles and a separation of powers. In the idealized Hebrew society, this meant a king to deal with the mundane expressions of power, such as taxes and raising an army, a priestly class to deal with the ritual purity and various legal issues, and a prophetic class to communicate as best they could the will of the eternal. In such a society, a machshefa would challenge the ability of the priest to diagnose and treat illness through ritual purity, as well as challenge the bailiwick of the prophet as they tried to interpret the great mysteries, although they were most likely a common part of everyday life. A machshefa, the thing we translate as witch, could not live within the society that Torah was trying to develop. Much more a statement on which careers should be promoted than an edict to kill all that were found. Machshefa lo techaye is but one verse that begins the humble suggestion that we all have something to learn, not only about Judaism and its origins, but as well our prejudices and assumptions about it. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll see you next time. All right, for those of you that have stuck all the way to the end, this was an intense one, but if this rationalistic argument of Judaism and, quite frankly, all religions, while still fully embracing that religion, the ritual, the narrative, but with our intelligence, our brains, our inquiry fully a part of the discussion at all times, then you might be interested to know that this is taken from a little bit of the first chapter of my book that you always see in the background when I do these videos. Gateways into Judaism, Volume 1, Origins. It's Shabbat, so I'm not marketing. I'm just letting everyone know that that's what's in there. And if this is something interesting to you, just Google that and you will easily find where it's available on a non-Shabbat day. For all those of you that are new to the channel, new subscribers, I'm assuming that you are attracted to this channel because the arguments fall into this rationalist area, but while still fully embracing the importance of religion, religious narrative, religious ritual. Gateways isn't an intro to Judaism book, it is an exploration and a love letter of how we, as fully intelligent human beings, not only can embrace our religions, but also how amazingly interesting, fully intelligent beings were there part of the process from the very beginning and at every step. As I say on the back cover, it's not what is Judaism, it's why is Judaism, and it's a love letter to something that has a lot of really cool, weird stuff in it. Again, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of this. Welcome to all of you new members, new subscribers, new viewers. I so much appreciate you. Take care. We'll see you next time. וקול שופר הריעו לפני המלך אדוני